Well, good afternoon, folks. My name is MI Randall. I'm the pastor of spiritual development here at the Faith Community, and it is my joy, my delight, my privilege, my elation to welcome you to Bible and Beyond Live. Every Saturday at the Faith Community, we get together and we study the Bible and we take a look at the scriptures, and we have this idea here at the Faith Community that the Bible is central, but it's not sovereign. And so we start with the Bible and then we go beyond and we see how we can apply its truths to our lives. And once a month, we come together and do this Bible and Beyond Live, where we do a little worship and then we open the doors and we allow folks to view this interactive Bible study all across the globe via Facebook Live, via YouTube, any of the streaming platforms on which you're viewing us now. So we're excited that you are with us and that you are joining us. We have been in a series called Breaking All the Rules. I don't know if you know it or not, but the lead pastor of the Faith Community, Pastor Kristian Smith, is a prolific author. He's a wonderful preacher. He's a gifted singer. You'll see that in just a minute. But he is also a prolific author. And he authored a book called Breaking All the Rules. It is an ancient framework for a modern faith. And it talks a little bit about this idea called the Greatest Commandment Theology. We are going to look at chapter 4 in that book today as we walk through this idea of Greatest Commandment Theology and then how it affects our lives and how it affects the lives of those who are around us. But before we hop into chapter 4, we're going to take a minute and we're just going to worship. Here at the Faith Community, we sing God music, and Pastor Kristian Smith is going to lead us in a moment of reflection and meditation as we listen to some God music. But before we do that, don't forget to share this. If you've got somebody who you think will be impacted by what is shared today here on Bible and Beyond Live, we want you to tag them either on YouTube or Facebook. Invite them to this interactive experience. I really think they'll be blessed. So, Kristian Smith, take it away.
Hey, TFC family. Welcome to Bible and Beyond Live. Today, we're glad to be here and worship. Normally, I'm not singing, but since Myron is leading us in our discussion today, it gave me an opportunity to sing a little bit. And as you know, at TFC, and if you don't know, you're going to learn today, we sing what we call God music. We sing music where we see God, where we see the divine, whether it's gospel or hip hop, whether it is CCM or jazz or R&B or a hymn. Whenever we see God, we sing music that we believe edifies and glorifies. And today, I want to sing a song that's actually a little bit jazzy. That's by an artist named Gregory Porter, and it's called When Love Was King. So I want you to really listen to these words as we sing, especially in this particular period of time when love was king. There once was a kingdom far, far away, where love was the rule of the day. Nothing more, nothing less than to give a friend your best. There's much more story that I could tell that could make the hardest hearts swell. This is the story when love was king. When love was king, Do you remember when love was king? When love was king, I remember, oh, when love was king. He ruled the land with his fist unfurled, with open arms for the world. Of hungry children, first he'd think to pull their lives from the brink. When love was king, he rescued souls lost in the sea, in drifting vessels. He would hear their plea. When love was king, he threw a line before they'd sink, and he gave the thirsty ones a drink. He told the meek that they should try to use the sword to smite the lie, that being kind is for the weak. When love was king, I pray the Lord these words we seek. Whoa. When love was king, he showed respect for all humans, regardless of their skin and clan. Beside him stood his mighty queen, an equal force, wise and keen. He lifted up the underneath, and all his wealth he did bequeath to those who toiled without a gain, so they would remember his reign. Whoa, so seek some place to call your own, right next to this mighty shining throne. When love was king, when love was king.
Wow. There is an axiom that says when words fail, music speaks. And Pastor Kristian Smith has delivered a sermon to us today with that song, letting us know that love is in need of love today. Jesus said it this way. He said, and you will know that we are Christians, not by our paraphernalia, not by our conversation, not even by the way we walk, but by the love that we have one for another. Another Bible writer said this. He said, God is love, which lets us know that if it doesn't have love in it, God is not in it. And so let us get back to a place where love is king. Thank you. Thank you, Kristian, for that. And that leads us beautifully into this idea of the greatest commandment theology. It leads us into breaking all the rules, because the essence of greatest commandment theology is just that. It is love. So we're going to talk about chapter 4 today. And I've got some friends who are joining me to have this discussion. So where you at, peeps? Come on here. Look at that. It's the crooner himself. Somebody said that sounded like something that should have been on the Lion King, right? That was beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
Hey, man, do not encourage Stephen Thurston.
Please.
Don't quote him. Don't quote his comments, because
he hit the nail on the head with that one. I got to give the man his credit. So Pastor Kristian Smith and our resident therapist, Pamela Mary Smith, I'm introducing y'all. Y'all can introduce yourselves. Say hi to the people that are tuning in with us virtually. Say hi. Y'all know
hey, everybody. I hope y'all know me. I just sang.
He did. He sung so beautifully. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here discussing Myron's chapter. You know, his name is in this chapter.
Oh yeah. You just took my thunder, Doc. I was going to tell him that. You know, page 42 is where this chapter begins, and there's a beautiful paragraph on that. I'm gonna read it to you in a bit. Who else is on the screen with us? Grace and Hester, say hello to us. You are muted, my friend.
That's just justice. I am he is me. I am Grayson, pronouns he, him, his. And I'm just super excited to be here.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're with us, Grayson. And then last but certainly not least, AT&T is what we call her. I'll let you share your real name. You do or muted, ma'am.
See, this is just okay. Anyways, hello everybody. It is me. I'm Tierney Jordan. I'm happy to be here with you guys to talk about chapter 4 of Breaking All the Rules.
You got it. You got it. This is by far the book is good. The whole book is good, and I encourage you to go get the book. ChristianASmith.com is where you can get it. Get your own copy. You need your copy, but let me tell you, chapter 4 is my favorite chapter because Kristian's name is on the front of the book, but my name is on page 42. I love it, y'all. This is great. Thank you. Thank you. This is my first time ever being written in a book. Well, I take that back. My name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, but it's also written in Breaking All the Rules. It's recorded in 2 places.
And listen, that's the Jackie Robinson page, so it means something.
You see, look at that. I'm hitting home my runs, and it's wonderful. I'm running the bases here today. This is great. So chapter 4 is the We Need Structure chapter. And Smith begins with talking about our weekly or our monthly Holy Smokes gathering. Anybody ever attended Holy Smokes in the comments? If you have, yeah, love that. say hi to us. We've got some holy folks, holy smokes, Lord, some holy smokes listeners and participators that are in the comments. Make sure you say hello. And Holy Smokes is an interactive gathering where we have free discussion and we smoke a cigar and drink a little bourbon and we talk about life, faith, and theology. And in that Holy Smokes experience, we make sure that we monitor our language. And we don't monitor cuss words. You know, sometimes you need an exclamation point that is a cuss word. Shout out to episode 3 of Holy Smokes back in season 1. But what we do monitor is we monitor multisyllabic words. We monitor words that are academic and have a lot of syllables. And I am notorious for dropping some of those multisyllabic words. I am a bit sesquipedalian sometimes, which means that I like big words and I use them just because I like to use them. And so in reading and talking about this book, I dropped some of those multisyllabic words, some of those large words that we're going to get to in a minute, because I feel like they help describe exactly what Smith is talking about here in the 4th chapter. But before we dig into the chapter, let's step back a little bit and talk about some big words that are not large in size, but are large in concept. So on your outlines, you'll see there are 3 questions. The first question is, what is justice? What is love? And what is truth? Let's start with the first question. And this is a free range answer. And I promise we're going somewhere with this. It's a free range answer. Whatever comes up, what is justice? Tierney, why don't you take that one for us? What, in your estimation, what is justice?
Okay, you caught me off guard. You called on me first. Nobody ever does that. Okay. So what is justice? I think it's being committed to and fighting for not necessarily equality, but more so equity, so that everyone has the access and the opportunity to an equitable amount of resources, an equitable amount of whatever the thing we're fighting for justice in. And so making sure that one group of people isn't more privileged or doesn't have easier access to whatever that thing is. So making sure that there is a level playing field that is equitable across the board.
I love this idea of equity, but also the idea of a fight. Who else? What is justice in your estimation? Grayson, talk to us.
Well, if you look at the word literally, and it's multiple syllables, it's whenever you're not really feeling like a drink, but you would like something cool. So you have just ice.
Mercy, God. That's what we're doing. That's it. That's it.
I killed the pastor.
Oh.
He's dead. But when I'm in my right brain and not the one that's at the end of finals and all that, I would say that justice is our temporal reality, the reality that we can touch and feel and experience with our senses, that matches the eternal reality, capital R reality. And that capital R reality is that we are all equally human. We are all equally made in the beloved image of God. No person has more of that image than anyone else. And so we are at our base all sharing the identities of beloved in like this great reality. And then whenever we enter into the temporal reality, we see that in our systems and in our human life together, that is not the case. There are some who believe themselves to have more image of God than others. And there, however that's stratified, whether it's race, class, sexual orientation, etc. And so then there are those who, because we live with finite resources, who are made to believe or are shown that they have less of the image of God. And so when we fight to make the temporal reality, to make the tangible reality more like the permanent reality that underlies all of this, that permeates all of this, that we are all equal and that we are all equitably loved by God in the ways that we need, that is when we reach justice, when it is on earth as it is in heaven.
I love it. So I want you to notice something by both definitions that we got there from both individuals, similar in content, but definitely different in concept. Definitely different in concept. Pamela, what's justice to you?
Justice for me is equality and accountability. That's what it is. It's about making the playing field level for everybody. And it's also about holding everybody equally accountable. Introducing
a new word there, accountable, right? So not just equitable, but also accountable, that you've got to take some responsibility for your actions if there's going to be justice on both parts of the justice scale there. Smith, talk to us. What's justice, man?
The word that comes to mind for me is just making whole. Justice is the act of making people whole. And I think that ties into whether we're looking at restorative justice, where we're restoring people. So somebody has been mistreated or misused. Justice is restoring what was taken from them. And then you have the other side of justice, what we see in the courtroom, where people who have committed violent acts, they have to face the justice in the court. So they have to face the consequences. That's the accountability she talked about. But either way, it's about making whole. So whatever was done to you or whatever you did, how do we make that process whole?
That's good. Deepening the concept even further and dividing it a little bit, right? Talking about this idea of legal justice and then restorative justice, making the concept even larger. So justice is, two syllables, not really a large word, but a very large concept. Let's make a switch. Let's talk about another very large concept. What is love? Smith, I'm going to toss it back to you since you just sung to us about love being king. So let's hear from Nat King Cole.
You're so rude. Also, I want to point out that Kalisha, please do not egg him on by talking about sesquipedalian.
No, it is what it is.
No. So breaking all the rules is really about clearly defining what love is.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into the book, if you haven't read it yet, you'll find that what I try to do is give a simplistic, direct approach to understanding abstract concepts. So justice is abstract, truth is abstract, love is abstract. So when I think about love, and we're kind of getting ahead in the book right now, but I talk about this, the first rule of love is to do no harm. If I love you, I'll make a commitment not to harm you. And that does not just mean the love that I have for other people, because the greatest commandment says love your neighbors as yourself. So that means if I love myself, I commit to not harming myself. So that's where love begins. And then to push love further, it goes beyond I'm not going to harm you, but then I'm going to do what I can to help you. So love is this balance of do no harm, do what you can to help. It starts with do no harm because you can't help everybody. As a pastor, one of the things I always have to remember is I can't help everybody. I can't save everybody. I can't go into this ministry with a savior complex, but I can do what I can not to harm people. And I can do that for myself as well, and then do what I can to help. And in living that out, I believe we live out what God created us to do.
I love it. I love it. In the words of that urban griot, don't save her. She don't want to be saved. Like you can't save everybody. You can't save everybody. I tossed it to the author of the book. I should have put him last because you notice he was tempted to concretize what love is. You're just cutting across the field. What's love to you, Tierney?
I mean, how you gonna tell me to define love after somebody who wrote a whole book about love already said what love is? Like, come on, Myron. Okay, I guess let me take a stab at it. So I think, I mean, here at TFC, it's all based in Grace Commandment Theology, but I guess a little bit outside of that, I think it kind of just speaks to caring for others. And so being intentional in the way that you care for others. And I mean, similar to Grace Commandment Theology, if you don't care for yourself, you can't care for other people, therefore you can't care for God. So, all of that works together. But I don't know, I guess I would just have to say care for others in an attempt not to steal Christian's definition from his book. Yeah.
Can I throw something?
Go ahead, go for it. Caring for others. I love it.
Because I really want to hear what everybody has to say. I know that there are 5 of us on the screen, but since we're all here together, for those who are joining us virtually, please do share what justice is to you and what love.
Oh, please,
yeah, include that. We want to engage in a dialogue with everybody who is here virtually. Just because you're not on the screen doesn't mean you can't involve yourself in what we're doing. So please do share.
And a technical note, can you please keep your comments to 2 to 3 lines so that I can share them on screen? If you have a really long comment, break it up into multiple posts and I'll put them in order, but please keep them to 2 to 3 lines. Thank you.
Little housekeeping right there. I love it. And we got a few of them. Velmont Randall, who I know very well, says being fair with everyone and everything on earth. That's her definition of justice. Callie Cawthon Friels, pastor of Congregational Care, says this: I think justice and equity have to be connected because justice is about more than removing oppression, but about making things right. That idea of restorative justice that you mentioned a little bit earlier, Smith, done well, it's restorative. It prevents future injustice and facilitates healing for the harm that is done. What else? Somebody tell us what's love in the comments. Grayson, I'm going to toss it to you while some folks type out what love is to them.
I think love is what is. I think it is why anything exists rather than nothing. I think love is the substance of that reality I was talking about. It is the reason why God did not rest content with an equitable relationship within God's self. I think if you follow a Trinitarian that is of the Trinity view of God, and therefore believe that there is an equitable, just relationship that is God and is within God, then God could have remained content with that. But it was love that drove or required or moved God to then lovingly create a world that exists because of loving relationship, that exists because of ecosystems that are in loving, equitable relationship with one another, with compounds that are comprised of molecules that have a loving relationship with one another. And so I think it is why anything exists. And I think because we are grounded in that and we bear the image of that, it is also grief and anger and rage and fear, because we feel those things so acutely because they are love's violation. If love is the base and if love is then those things which defile that, deny that, those are the things that we then must apply justice to and that we must fight against, because love is the person who's angry at loss. Love is the person who is afraid of friends losing their rights because of whatever. So I think love is more than just a reality. I think it's the reality.
That's good, Grayson. That's almost a metaphysical answer, right? That love is the why, right? Mm-hmm. And then the connection of love and justice. That's a real conceptual answer. There's some more folks that are adding their thoughts in the comments. Words with William says that justice is allowing reciprocal repercussion to meet each action due. That idea of legal justice, right? That we've got to shore up both sides, make sure each side is whole, and that everyone receives just due to what they have put out. That idea of justice there. MI Randall again in the comments, talking love is in the heart. It's the love that flows from the relationship you have with God, connecting the fact that God is love and that without God, you can't experience love, right? That love flows through God, and that if you've experienced love, you have in turn experienced God. Again, I love these very deep conceptual answers. Kalisha, excuse me. Love is the force of reason behind one's actions. What one does is inextricable from what one loves, right? This kind of connection of doing for someone that you love, right? It's an action, it's an expression that you have to physically walk out. I love that. Susan Willis says, love is giving of yourself without the expectation of anything in return. That idea of, listen, I'm giving to you and I don't want anything back from you. I just care about who you are, shaped and made in the image of God. Let's shift to one more conceptual thought, one more big picture idea. What is truth? What is truth? Pamela, I'm going to toss that one to you. What is truth?
It's relative. That's all I have. It's relative. I swear to God, that's all I got. Truth is relative, because my truth here in my apartment on my street may look completely different from your truth on the South Side, somebody's truth in Africa, somebody's truth in Asia, and we could all be talking about the same concept. So truth is relative.
It's relative. I mean, it's a personal thing, right? It's my truth, right? What my experience is my experience. What your experience is your experience. So your truth is based in you. It's relative. Grayson, what about you? What's truth?
I think I agree, and I think truth is more. I think there is a lowercase t truth and a capital T truth, because if we are all talking about the same concept, and if there is something, like for something to be relative, there has to be something against which it is judged and against which it is deemed relative. It has to relate to something. So maybe it is the truth that we can all be coming at this life with our own truths, then can find community, can find compassion, can find each other even within. So I don't disagree, but I also think that it can be very easily twisted to negative purposes to say that truth is relative, because then you get alternative facts, and then you get denial of systemic racism or denial of whatever. So it is true that truth is relative, but I think there is a truth to our being that they may very well be the fact of our being, and having come from something bigger than ourselves, that is the capital T truth, from which other truths can be derived. But I don't know. That's a big question that I'm still thinking about.
Yeah, I love it. It is a big question. It is a big question. Callie says this. She says, I think the misunderstanding we have concerning truth is that we mix what is true up with what is factual, right? This kind of dichotomy between these are the facts, but then this is the truth. A separation of the two. Who else? Go ahead. You want to throw something else in there?
Yeah, just one thing. I think that is a really beautiful part of postmodernism, in that the way I learned it was The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which is about Vietnam. And it is an untrue story in that it is fictional and therefore not factual, but it communicates truth and it resonates with our humanity in the same way that The Color Purple is not true. It is fiction, but it is truer than some facts.
Grayson, what is postmodernism?
I was wondering.
Yeah, talk about that philosophy, sir.
So postmodernism is what occurs after modernism, postmodernism, and it, at least in the literary sense, is a philosophical movement that essentially blossomed in the shadow of the mushroom cloud. So modernism is this belief that there is a positive aspect to it. It is, we can define categories and put people into categories, and reality can be constrained and understood. But then when postmodernism comes along and humans possess the ability to extinct ourselves with nuclear bombs, and the colonial powers start to lose their power, at least in the political sense, and Africa and Asia start to take center stage, and these perspectives are allowed to be heard, then we start seeing that systematized truth is, in a sense, to impose one truth as the only one.
You got it. It's when individual truth arises. It's the idea that everybody has their own individual narrative in postmodernism. It's the rejection of what they would call the meta narrative, which is the big picture idea. And it's the focus on everybody's individual idea. Kind of what you said, Pam, that truth is relative to each person. And that's what postmodernism recognizes, that you can't put us all in one category. You've got to uncategorize us so that we all can recognize our own and individual truth. So I think you hit that right on the head, Grace. And let me ask this next question. Now, this question is not on the outline. We just talked about some really big concepts, right? Not necessarily large words, but big concepts. If I said that all these concepts were in Christianity, would you agree with that? Would you say that Christianity has to do a little bit with justice? There's justice. That's an element of Christianity. Would you say that love is an element of Christianity? Would you say that truth is an element of Christianity? Would you say that those things are a part of the Christian experience? Would you all say that?
I think depending on your experience of Christianity, yes.
That's what I was about to say.
There are some experiences of Christianity that don't show love.
Let me rephrase. I don't want to talk about the practicality. I want to talk about the ideal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Ideally, these things are supposed to be in Christianity. We're supposed to have truth, right? We're supposed to have justice, or we're supposed to have love, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? If we do this thing correct, all of them are supposed to be about Christianity, or Christianity is supposed to be about all of these things. Here's then the next question. How do we do these? If it's Christianity, ideally is supposed to have this. How do we do love? How do we do justice? How do we do truth? How do we do it? I think
wait, do you want us to answer all of these at one time?
Just give me a strategy on how to do some of this stuff.
Okay, so the first thing that came to mind for me, I was thinking specifically about justice when the thought came up, but I think it applies to all of them, is checking your privilege. So I think you have to know how you operate in society, the ways you are privileged, and be able to check those things in order to be able to fight for justice, in order to be able to exude and embody love, in order to be able to understand your truth versus the truth of the most marginalized people in the world, which might not be you, as you check your privilege, because we are all privileged in some ways. So I might not experience privilege in my race or in my gender, but I experience privilege in the fact that I am educated, that I have a bachelor's degree, that I am financially able to pursue a master's degree. And so you have to be able to realize the ways in which you sit in the world and check the privilege that comes along with that in order to be able to accomplish these ideals of the Christian faith, such as justice.
I love that. That's a solid strategy. Check your privilege. Who else has a strategy for accomplishing one of these ideals? How do you do it?
I was going to say just doing a self-assessment, always assessing your motives, and always assessing your emotions and the place that you're coming from, because that's what helps you operate in authenticity. So you, like Tierney was talking about, checking your privilege, like you got to check your emotions too. You got to check your motive. You got to you have to constantly be aware of yourself and understanding the place that you're coming from, so that your actions can be pure and they can be genuine.
I like it.
I just want to say how proud I am of William Bean right now. He said,
You see that, right? Listen, I love that y'all are all begging the point here. Y'all, you know where we're going with this, right? We're going to the greatest commandment, theology, but let's walk there. Let's walk that together here. We want to build a case.
So I want to answer that.
Go ahead.
Because I believe our expression and execution of it all is rooted in love first.
Sure enough.
I believe that our concept of justice stems from our understanding of love. I believe that our concept of truth stems from our understanding of love. So if I love my neighbor as myself, meaning I'm not going to do harm to myself and not going to do harm to my neighbor, and I'm going to help myself as much as I can and help my neighbor as much as I can, then that helps me to frame what justice is. Now I can frame what truth is, because truth, it is relative, and I do think there is a bigger truth that it relates to, and I believe that it's rooted in lived experience. So because I understand the love for myself and my neighbor, I can accept their truth when it doesn't cause harm to them or anybody else. Like, I'm not going to accept your truth when your truth is rooted in my lack of humanity. I'm not going to accept your truth if it's rooted in oppressing me. I won't accept that as truth, because that tells me you don't understand what love is. And you got to reframe what love is so you can get a better understanding of what truth is.
Oh man, that's so good. We need that, don't we? That was awesome. Oh my God, this is so good. But here's what I want you to notice. So we talked about big concepts, really large concepts. And then when we talked about strategies, everybody had a different strategy. So if Christianity is supposed to have these ideals, why is it that everybody has a different way to reach the same ideals? How do we coalesce around a strategy to accomplish this ideals? And then that brings us right into the framework of chapter 4. Because in chapter 4, Kristian Smith makes this critique of progressive Christianity. And he says that progressive Christianity is really good at recognizing the ideals that are supposed to be in Christianity, right? We're really good. I sit in a progressive space, right? So we know that justice is supposed to be there. We know that love is supposed to be there. We know that truth is supposed to be there. And there's probably another list of other things that are supposed to be in Christianity, ideally. But the problem is when we get to the strategies, our strategies are all over the place. And oftentimes we have no strategy. Go ahead, Tierney. What you got to say about that?
I just wanted to ask if coalesce was a dollar jar word and if you were supposed to define it or not. That is all. Carry on.
Yeah. Coalesce means to come together, to pull together. Oh my God.
It's the root of coalition.
There it is. It's pulling together to create something together, to create a synergy. I tried not to.
Thank you. Help me out.
Oh my God. Okay. This is so Grayson.
Okay. And I think, the strategy could be something as simple as how we structure our days. Mm-hmm. Because if we stay up too late and then wake up too early and then don't eat, assuming we have the privilege to have access to foods that are nutrient dense for our own bodies, as many people don't, and that's not their fault. But if we have these choices that we can make, if we have the privileges, and that goes back to Tierney, checking our privileges, but if we have those privileges to choose when we wake up and what we eat and when we eat and how we eat and all of that, and whether or not we exercise, like those are all acts of self-love that allow us to continue loving other people better and hopefully making just the relationship within our own bodies, within our own apartments, so that then we can have more fuel to make justice in the larger spaces. And also we have something that we can point to as like, oh, well, I know how it feels when I'm home and I'm taking care of me and everything feels right and the candle's lit and the office is on the TV and the food is great. And it's like, that's how this feels. how can we then make this out here feel like this back there? So I think it also starts with the smallest strategy of what time am I waking up tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, a different strategy, right? Notice, hey, let's do this. Let's be self-aware. Let's check our privilege. Let's do a structure to our day. Let's recognize love. All different strategies to get at the same ideals. And so we've got to figure out a way to bring it all together. We've got to figure out a way to use Kristian Smith's term to concretize, to make these abstract principles incredibly concrete. Now I want to back up to page 42. That's what my name is written in the book. I said something on page 42. I said a word, and the word
I gotta stop you there because you missed your own page. You on 43.
I'm on page, and I got that written right here. I'm on page 43, Jesus. I didn't write page 42. I'm on page 43, folks. I apologize. I said a word here that I want to introduce to this discussion, and it's the word verisimilitude. Because when we were talking about this book, the word that kept popping in my mind was verisimilitude. Verisimilitude means this. It means appearing or having the appearance of being real or true, but not necessarily real or true. So for the first couple of chapters of the book, Smith has introduced us to this rule-keeping theology that people have tried to use to create truth. But I think when I mentioned the word verisimilitude to Kristian, as we were discussing this book, I was thinking of the idea of this, that a lot of people use rule-keeping theology as a verisimilitude, that we try to make truth with the rules that we create. And ultimately, it's not truth, it's just rules. And while the rules look real, they're not a real expression of truth. On the outline, there is a quote the term usually goes with plays and movies, right? So a playwright tries to make sure that they have verisimilitude, that it's believable, but it's not necessarily true. It's just believable. So listen to what William Archer says in his book, Playmaking. I read this book years ago, and this quote I thought of. Listen to what he says. Not truth, but verisimilitude is his aim. For the stage is the realm of appearances in which intrusive realities become unreal. And how often in church have we used rules as the stage for the realm of appearances where unintrusive realities become real? Callie, put what Callie just set up on the screen. I think she hit it right on the head. You can't make rules to uphold a lot of lies. The rules sometimes help us look like it's real, but really, it's a verisimilitude. It's a verisimilitude. And so what Smith suggests to us is that we need to find a way. Yeah, it's the same root as verify. You got it. What's real? What's really true? What's the difference between appearing real and actually being real? And what Smith suggests to us in chapter 4 is that we've got to concretize. We've got to find a way to find something that's authentic to help us live into the big ideals that Christianity presents to us. We always have a choice. We always have a choice of what we do with big ideals. Let me tell this story. I didn't plan on telling the story, but so we'll see how this works out, huh? When I was in DC, my boss used to tell us this. So our job was to plan these really big events. We would plan these big events. And she said, well, be careful when you plan these big events because you want to make sure that these big events you can execute. And sometimes our imagination runs away and we can't execute the big events. Because they just become too big and they become impossible to do. So she would tell the story of her being in high school and a part of a committee that was commissioned to design a homecoming float. And so they got together to build this homecoming float. And they first started talking about the homecoming float. They were like, okay, we're gonna build this float, and the first we're gonna make it beautiful. We're gonna have streamers on the homecoming float. And everybody was like, yeah, let's put streamers on the homecoming float. Everybody loved it. It was gonna be beautiful, multicolored streamers. And then somebody said, well, if we're gonna put streamers, why don't we put the school mascot was a lion? So let's put some paper mache lions on the homecoming float. Somebody was like, yeah, let's put some paper mache lions on the homecoming float. So we got streamers, we got paper mache lions, and then somebody else says, well, wouldn't it be cool if the lions spent around? Maybe we could like get some type of apparatus to make them spin as well. So we got streamers and we got paper mache lions, and they're gonna spin. Oh, that's too cool. Well, you know, we gotta have lights on the homecoming float. So if we're gonna have electricity for the lions to spin, let's put some lights on the homecoming float too. And somebody was like, yeah, let's put lights on the homecoming float. So we got streamers, we got paper mache lions that spin, and we got some lights. And somebody said, well, if we got electricity, why don't we get some TVs? And we could play YouTube videos of the cheerleading team while the float is going down the street. We could put that all on the homecoming float too. And somebody was like, yeah, let's put some TVs on the homecoming float. So we got streamers, we got lions that spin made out of paper mache. We got lights because we got electricity. And since we got lights, we might as well have some flat screen televisions. And then somebody says, oh, what if we not just put a string of lights? What if we light up the whole homecoming float? What if we make a bed of lights on the homecoming float? Somebody said, oh, that's great. Let's do that as well. And then somebody said, well, where are we going to get the lights from? Somebody was like, oh, I don't know where we're going to get the lights from. Oh, that sounds expensive. Yeah, that sounds expensive. Then somebody else was like, well, we can still have the lions, right? We can still have the lions. Well, no, I don't know how we're going to make them spin. Well, we don't need the lions. Then we can't make them spin, so we don't need the lions. And somebody else, lights. We could get lights, but it's October. I don't know if they have the Christmas lights at Home Depot, so I don't know if we could get I don't know if we could get the lights. We don't need no lights. And then somebody said, man, this seems hard. We don't need a homecoming float. Yeah, no, we don't. Yeah, let's not do a homecoming float. Everybody said, we can't. Let's not do a homecoming float. And my boss would caution us that when we were in those spaces where we were talking about big ideals, stop building homecoming floats. She would tell us the idea of execution is to make sure you have a simple thing to execute, as opposed to building on more rules, more ideas, and more concepts that then make it ultimately impossible to execute. And when it's hard to execute, it'll ultimately be exterminated. You exterminate what you can't execute. And my friends, could that be what we've seen in Christianity? That we've started to kill the essence of Christianity because we could not execute the principles, the ideals that Christianity has suggested to us.
That's good, right?
Did that work out? I mean, I didn't plan that one.
You know what that made me think about, Myron? It made me think about fake purses.
Yeah.
It makes me think about like being in New York and what is it, Canal Street that has all the stuff, and expensive bags cost a lot of money, and you can easily go out on Canal Street with $25, $30 and get you a fake whatever, Birkin, Louboutin, whatever you want. But what happens is, like, the oversaturation of the fake bags takes away from the authenticity of the real bags. Because now you have all of the, I always say this, performative. Then you have all of these fake bags pretending to be real and authentic when they aren't. And then the real and authentic sometimes gets looked at negatively because of all of the performers around. So it's like you get a bag, you got two bags, you don't know which one is the right one because The fake bag looks just like the real bag. You have to do so much digging and searching and researching to verify that the real bag is real.
You got it.
Which is why people come into authentic Christian spaces, and it's like they treat it like the fake bag because they've spent so much time in fake spaces with people pretending to be Christians and pretending to love and pretending justice and pretending truth, that when you get in the real space, you don't even trust the real space, because the real space, even though it's being real, looks like the fake performative space. So yeah, that's that on that.
We're going to have to add air horns to this here Bible and Beyond Live, because my God.
The bag has verisimilitude. It looks like it's the right bag. It looked like a real Louis, but it's not a real Louis.
So in order to secure your faith, you need to secure the bag.
Why did I know that was coming? That's a great place to pause. We're going to hop into the solutions for this in just a minute, but let's pause and get some announcements. We always like to take a break and talk about what's going on at TFC. Are you being blessed? Is this good? Are y'all getting something out of this, folks? I mean, Kristian Smith is a prolific author, y'all. This blessed my entire soul. And not just because I'm on page 43. But this is a legit book. This is a good book, Doc. You did a good job. So I'm going to toss it to you. Would you give us the TFC top 3 and tell us how we can give to TFC as well?
Absolutely. I'm going to take 60 seconds or less. We're going to get right back to Myron to finish this discussion today. If you've enjoyed this, please share it. Please tag some people. Drop a note in the comments. Let us know that you're with us, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Here's what you need to know. TFC top 3. Tomorrow, our Faith and Film Connection group is gathering virtually in the Faith and Film Facebook group. The film for tomorrow is the Black Mirror episode Nosedive. It is Pamela's all-time favorite Black Mirror episode. She's actually writing a series of blogs for therapyandtheology.com based on Nosedive. So you want to be a part of Faith and Film. Somebody drop the link to Faith and Film in the comments, if you will, so people can join the group. Second, our Let's Talk About Sex Connection group, which we started in September. Tierney Jordan leads that group. It's not meeting in November because of Thanksgiving. So for those that were looking forward to talking about sex this month, you got to wait till next month, because we're not going to do it this month. We will be worshiping, though, on the 28th. Which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We will be streaming our worship right here on Facebook and YouTube. And I'm excited about it. I have a message that I'm looking forward to sharing. And that message is entitled 99.5 Will Do. 99.5 Will Do. If you heard that song from Hezekiah Walker back in the 90s, I promise you want to be a part of this worship experience, where we're going to talk about 99.5 will do. Last thing, we appreciate everybody who continues to support the faith community financially. Everything that you give goes towards this ministry and the many endeavors that we have. You know, we have a lot going on with connection groups and community engagement and our blog and the worship and everything that we're doing. We need your help to continue to support. You can give on the Givelify app by just searching the faith community. You can give on Cash App using hashtag TFCATL. You see the PayPal information there. You can go to our website and go to thefaithcommunity.org/give. And you can also give by check. We don't get many of those these days, but if you want to send us a check, you can also write a check. So please do give. The ministry will go as far as we give. Again, the ministry will go as far as we give. Myron, back to you. You're muted.
The button. There we go. I feel like that was a good brain break so that we can kind of reset, because we've talked about some really big concepts, some really big ideals. And we've also noticed that the strategies to get to those concepts are varied. They're kind of all over the place. And we've also realized that sometimes we create false strategies to look like we hit the ideal, But in actuality, those strategies don't measure up to the ideal, and it ultimately turns people off of the ideal because the strategy is false. So what then do we do? I want to read a quote to you. This is written by my friend Kristian Smith on page 44. This is what Kristian says. Here's what I meant by concretize: to give a specific or definite form and structure to an idea. My critique of progressive theological expressions is that we have, in large part, not done an adequate job of giving specific or definite form and structure to our theology. So here's the question. How does structure help us? How does structure help us? Grace, I'm gonna toss that to you. How does structure help us? Unmute yourself first.
I right-clicked as opposed to left-clicked.
Oh.
So I thought I had done the work, but I hadn't. And that, my friends, is verisimilitude. I think structure is important because all of life exists within structure. So if we are to communicate to people who are alive and are living life and have life because of structures, whether societal or biological or psychological or all of these things, if we try to communicate life-giving things that don't give by the terms that life set, then I don't know that those things land, because it's trying to act in ways that are contrary to how we have been socialized and raised to act. So I think that structure is very important because it gives us something to hold on to. It gives us something to latch on to. And it, yeah, I think you can't really do much without it.
I love that. I want to highlight some of the folks in the comments that are talking to us about structure. Pastor Callie Coffin Frills, one of my dearest friends, says structure gives us an action plan. It's accomplishable, right? It gives us something to execute. I like that. Susan Willis says structure is the blueprint of how to go about a task. It's directions. What else? What else? Structure. Structure. How does structure help us? Go ahead, Tierney.
I think structure lets you know who your people are. So in order to, you have to be able, okay, structure gives you things to go by. Like you said, it's an action plan. It's a blueprint of how you guide yourself. And so certain people guide themselves by certain structures and by certain beliefs and by certain thoughts. And so I think that by having structure set in place, it lets you know what people are for you and what people are against you. So the rules, the beliefs, the action plans that you've aligned yourself with lets me know if you're for me or if you're not.
I love this. I love this. There's more people in the comments that are adding. Belmont Randall says structure gives you a plan to follow, keeps you on track. Pamela, I'm gonna call you out on this one. What does structure mean for you, and why is it important to us?
Structure for me provides a way to do something efficiently. Like you could give me a concept, and it might take me forever to get my own routine down. Like, you know, you could throw out Greatest Commandment to 5 people, and 5 people, you know, if they don't have a framework, they're all going to go about their own way. It may take one person 5 years. It may take somebody else 2 months. But when you have a structure and a system and a framework for something, it allows you to see the steps and to be efficient about it so that you're not doing unnecessary stuff and wasting time.
I love this. I love this, guys. Structure is so important. William says this. He says, from the entrepreneur fallacy portion of chapter 4, I get that fear is the greatest hurdle to one moving from antiquated and outdated rules to real life applications, actions, activities, structure. Oh, that's so good. Matter of fact, let's pause to talk about that particular portion of the chapter, right? So he mentions in the entrepreneur fallacy portion of the chapter that a lot of people say, listen, I want to leave my 9-to-5 job and I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make my own rules. I want to do business at my speed as opposed to the speed of someone else. It's a fallacy, because oftentimes an entrepreneur finds themselves working harder, doing life and business at their own speed than if they were working at the 9-to-5 job, right? The structure helps contain the whole enterprise. The structure helps contain the whole enterprise. And so some people think, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, but they lose the structure. Actually, Smith, I'm gonna call you in on this one. And I know you wrote the book, but you're also an entrepreneur. Tell us the difference between working a 9-to-5 and then being an entrepreneur.
So there are benefits and caveats to both, right? You have the benefit of structure when you work a 9-to-5, because you know what time you clock in and what time you get off. You know that during these hours I'm going to work, and on these specified dates I'm going to get a check. I'm going to get a direct deposit into my account. And many of us work in jobs where we're going to get that direct deposit regardless of how we performed, right? Unless you work in a straight commission-based job, the fact that you showed up and you were on the job for that time period, you're going to get that check. That helps you to make a living. So, you know, there are all these benefits to that structure. Now, that structure and that space also limits you to a certain extent, because you may be making a living doing work that doesn't make you come alive. So you get that check, but you're really not alive on the inside. You're really not happy on the inside, or you just you feel unfulfilled. So what happens is people think, oh, I'm just going to do entrepreneurship because, see, I can make my own hours. I can do this. I can do that. And it's like, yeah, don't look at those few success stories of entrepreneurship and think that's how it works for everybody. Because most entrepreneurs don't make it because of how difficult it is. Like, I honestly believe you got to be a little bit crazy in the head to really go 100% at entrepreneurship. And I put it in the chapter. When you get a chance, read the chapter. I wrote this little section on entrepreneurship and the roller coaster of emotions it will take you through. That was the easiest section of this book to write, because I was literally just writing my own experience. I didn't make any of that stuff up that I wrote in the chapter. I experienced all of that stuff that I talked about. And I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to go any further than where Randall is and start talking about.
You all right? You're fine with me.
So it's very important that we understand why we need structure, because the structure gives us security. It gives us security. We can't throw people out here by flipping rule keeping paradigm on its head and don't give them anything to land on.
You got it.
We can't do that. And that's why people just stay away. When William said it, fear.
Yep.
If we don't give structure to our theology, then it just results in fear. So people cling to rule-keeping theology because it gives them the structure. And although they don't agree with it, they think it sucks, it's oppressive, at least I understand the rules. At least I know what I'm supposed to do. But if you just say, just love everybody, I don't even know what that means. So you want me to stake my eternal existence on just love? No.
That's so good, because I just thought about that idea of a 9-to-5 and then entrepreneurship. So how do entrepreneurs become really successful? They create systems.
Yes.
And those systems allow them to be successful. So what happens is systems and structure isn't bad. It's just when it's inauthentic systems and inauthentic structures, those damage people. But the idea of a system and a structure isn't bad. So if you leave in a 9-to-5 because it's got structure, I hate to tell you, there's going to be structure on the other side. And if you're going to be successful on the other side, you've got to have some structure. And so while we are advocating switching and moving from rule-keeping theology, we're advocating that there is something else over here. There's a structure, there's a system that's a little bit better. Anybody want to throw something in there?
Yeah, I was I was going to just kind of reinforce your point, because what happens is we tend to leave a space that did not work for us, and then we abandon everything about that space, the good, bad, and the indifferent, right? So we come out of faith communities with this framework that it's keep the rules, rule keeping theology. If you want to get into heaven, do this, 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 and this. And if you want to stay out of hell, don't do this, 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 and this, right? And we like, I can't do that. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. And then we say, I'm going to throw away all of that. No more structure. Like, I don't want all of these rules. But you have to have something. You have to have something on which to land when you leave that. And there's some good stuff about that structure. It was done improperly. It was done to manipulate and control. It was done to, and it caused anxiety and depression, and for some people, suicidal ideation. And it required a lot of people to suppress their own humanity. It required people to suppress their feelings. But the structure in and of itself serves a purpose. It keeps you grounded. So the challenge of the chapter is, how do we take the structure of the frameworks from which we've come and apply that to something that's healthy? And that's why this chapter was so important to me.
Can I add to that, Myron? And I can just give a real life example of why structure is important. Because I come from a tradition where a lot of people left to find something else because it was so strict and toxic to a certain degree. What happens when you don't have structure and you throw away the baby in the bathwater? You know what happens? And this is real life. You land exactly where you started. You land exactly where you started. And I say that because I remember being in my rule-keeping, structured, strict, toxic, theological, religious faith community, right? And I remember people leaving because they hated what we were doing and couldn't fathom doing it any longer. Went to start other ministries with no structure,
Jesus,
and landed in the same place. The building looks different. The talk might sound different, but it is the same thing that they left, and sometimes worse, because you're trying to recreate it. Sometimes you mess it up even worse. So when Kristian was talking about the security and how people cling to rule-keeping theology, all I could think was the examples of people that I knew that left our faith community, went and started ministries that looked exactly like what we left.
Or let me add this, because when you first said that, I was thinking about your experience of trying to get away, but there was no structure, so you just decided to go back.
Just go back. Yeah.
It's too unsure out here. There's nothing to undergird me. So let me just go back to where I came from, even though I hated it. I'm gonna just go back. Like, so some people recreate what they left to keep the structure. And then some people go back to where they were to be able to get that structure. That's what's keeping them. That's what's holding them, is the structure.
Oh man, that's so good.
It holds them and it pushes them, because a lot of people go back and forth. They leave and come back multiple times.
My God, what you can't execute, you exterminate, right? You just destroy the whole attempt. I'm done with this. I'm going back to where at least I knew what I was supposed to do, right? At least I had an idea of where I was supposed to go. At least I had some rules that kept me in check. So good, so good. How does structure help? Folks in the comments are chiming in. Let's look at what some of the folks says. Callie says this. She says, structure also gives something to measure. It helps recognize if we are making progress or if we are missing the mark. That is so good. How do we measure that we're going forward? How do we measure that we're accomplishing the ideals that we know should be in Christianity? Well, what do we have that says we're making sure that we love one another? that we're making sure that we're doing justice, that we make sure that we are sharing truth. What's the structure that makes that happen? How do we measure that? Words by William says this. He says structure must be applicable and effective. Oh, I love that idea of it being applicable. It's got to be something that you can do. If you can't accomplish it, you can't do it, right? You can't have it. We were at retreat. The faith community was at retreat just over the last few days. And Pastor Kristian Smith, I mean, he was up there teaching and giving us all he got. I mean, he was like Anita Baker up there, just giving us the best that he's got. And he wrote SMART on the board, which is a goal setting technique, that the goals have to be SMART goals, that they've got to be specific, they've got to be measurable, they've got to be, here's the big one, they've got to be attainable. This is something that I actually can do. And oftentimes we idealize the ideals, but there is no way to get to them. There is no methodology to achieve the ideals as they are prescribed. What else is in the comments? This is some good stuff, y'all. Y'all still doing all right out there? Y'all good? Good.
And Myron, that's why rule keeping theology is debilitating, because it's not attainable.
It's not attainable.
So we just spin our wheels trying to attain this standard that really isn't attainable. And that's what keeps us controlled. It's unattainable. So that's why you always feel inadequate. That's why you always feel less than. That's why you always feel like God is disappointed in you, and God is ashamed of you, and God is angry, and God is going to send you to hell. Because the theology it creates unattainable goals. So greatest commandment theology pushes us to work towards progress rather than perfection.
Oh, I love it.
And I think that's what this structure helps us get to, is understanding that at the foundation, it's not about you being perfect. It's not about checking stuff off of a list. It's about really engaging in the process and the journey of loving to love yourself and your neighbor, because that is the realization of what it means to love God.
That's so good. Look, Callie chimes in. She says this. She says, rule-keeping theologies aren't smart. She's taking something right out of your playbook there, Grayson. It's not smart at all. Not smart at all. They're not specific. It's not attainable. You can't do it. It's the wrong rules. That's why. It's rules based on self-effort and moralism. It's the wrong rules. It's the wrong rules. There's something else. Callie says this. That's why I think defining terms is so important. Christians are supposed to love. But what do you mean by love? Clarification is everything when building a structure. What specifically are we supposed to do? Now, I'm trying my hardest to stay here in chapter 4, because in chapter 5, Kristian Smith then introduces us to an ethic, to a framework, if you would, that helps us find out what to do. What Kristian Smith does is he introduces us to something, to quote myself, he introduces us to a prolegomena. That idea of prolegomena is an idea of a method. So usually when somebody writes a theological text, before they give us the rigors of the theology, they first give us a prolegomena. The prolegomena is the methodology that allows us to take a look at the theology. And so in chapter 5, which we'll discuss next week, Kristian Smith then breaks down the prolegomena for us. He gives us the framework. He gives us the approach. He gives us the method so that ultimately we can accomplish the ideals that Christianity espouses. He concretizes, if you would, how we accomplish those great ideas. I want to give you one more quote.
Can I say?
Go ahead, sir.
Can I say something? Because Callie is bringing up incredible points. She's one of our amazing ministers, here at the faith community, and she's just brilliant in every way. She said something about missing the mark earlier, and then she also made a comment about defining terms. And what's so important about that is missing the mark is many people's working definition of sin. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, you need to get it, because I spend so much time breaking down definitions of words that we've just thrown out without really understanding the application. So if you just take missing the mark as your working definition of sin, well, then you got to ask, what is the mark? If you don't have a good concrete definition of love, then you'll have all these people who espouse to Christianity and say they follow Jesus, and they act in completely opposite ways. We're seeing it right now with primarily the white evangelical church that says they love Jesus, but then they support somebody in office who's been a bigot, who's been homophobic, who's been xenophobic, who's been racist, who has only cared about him winning. That's all he cares about. And he'll sacrifice whatever in order for him to win, which is the exact opposite of Jesus.
Sure enough.
That's because we haven't established actual definitions that help us to be specific in our form and our structure.
I was going to compare when you are a part of something that is only rule keeping, that is the epitome of the fake bag, because everybody that has ever owned a fake bag knows that it's about the symbolism and what they build it with and how they put it together, but eventually it falls apart.
True.
The structure and the base isn't authentic. So it's like when you get into religious spaces that don't understand what the true definition of love is, they haven't talked about it, they haven't discussed it, they haven't discussed justice, and they haven't discussed equity. They put these rules. It's like they build a fake bag. They build a fake bag. Everybody gets a fake bag. And then what happens is the wear and tear on that fake bag, it falls apart, which is why you get people leaving. Because the structure isn't good. The foundation isn't good. So they leave.
And real bags get better with age.
Yes.
Yeah.
They become vintage and more valuable as they age.
Yep.
Patina to them, right? Oh gosh.
Yep.
Lord, I need to go hit up Poshmark right now. Glory to Jesus. All right. Listen, folks, it's 5:24. We're getting near our time. But we have got a phenomenal group of folks that have been with us on the screen. Y'all have any last comments about chapter 4? And let me tell you, the temptation is so heavy for me to switch into chapter 5. But I'm going to save that. We know we need structure. And so Kristian Smith introduces us to the greatest commandment. Any other comments before we begin to wrap this up?
Well, we'll talk about that structure next week. So everybody who wants to be a part of that, text disruptive to 31996 if you haven't already, because we're going to actually give the structure next week.
You got it.
This chapter was to talk about the importance of structure so that we understand why we need it. Next week, we're really going to talk about what the structure of greatest commandment theology is.
Okay, I was just the appetizer, folks. The meal is on the way. Okay. Listen, here at the Faith Community, we practice this idea called the greatest commandment theology, and we're going to dig deep into it next week. But the foundation of that ideal is love. And it starts with you loving yourself. Before you can love your neighbor, which is an expression of how you love God, you have first got to recognize that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you love you because God made you as you are. And so I want to offer this invitation to anybody that's watching us. If you want to love yourself on a greater level, if you want to get a little bit closer to God by learning how to love you, we want you to know that all this love is waiting for you. So I'm going to invite you to text the word disruptive to 31996 to connect with us here at the Faith Community as you learn a little bit more about how to open up your heart, not just to others, but open up your heart to yourself so that ultimately you can then love others and show your love for God. You're not committing to anything outrageous. It's just a conversation. We just want to talk to you and let you know that we love you and that you should love yourself. Folks, I've had a phenomenal time here with you today as we've talked about chapter 4. We need structure, my favorite chapter of the book. Thank you for joining us here at the Faith Community. And we are going to sign off. Would you put everybody back on the screen so that we all can wave and give our salutations as we will see you next week for Bible and Beyond. Thanks for watching us, folks.